Thanks very much, Kevin. And again, as a resident of Cashel, I'd very much like to welcome you all to Cashel this morning at the beginning of the St. Declans Way walk. Very appropriate that it's starting today on the feast day of St. Declan, the 24th of June. And what I'd like to do is basically just give you a flavour of what you'll be passing by along your walk. What would St. Declan have seen along the route as he walked from Cashel to Cahir along this stretch? I know that on the other days you'll have people who will give you a little flavour of the other stretches along the walk. So the first thing, of course, and I think we can't really ignore it, is this magnificent acropolis here beside us in Cashel, the Rock of Cashel. Cashel is often known as Cashel of the Kings, Cashel na Rí, and that's for very good reason, because for a lot of its history, the Ogonucht kings of Cashel would have been associated with this place in particular and with the southern half of the country. Now, the Ogonucht kings of Cashel have a very long and complex history, and I certainly don't have the time to go through it here with you this morning. But just to pick out one or two who would be of significance around the time of St. Patrick, and there is an extract from a 7th century life of St. Patrick, which records that King Angus, who's one of the Ogonucht kings, was actually baptised by St. Patrick on the Rock of Cashel up here. Now, of course, you wouldn't have seen any of this, as you have to strip away all of the buildings, strip away the surrounding walls, and imagine just wooden and possibly one or two stone structures on the rock as well. But the king was baptised on the rock by St. Patrick, and the legend goes that during the ceremony, St. Patrick had his crozier with him, so not too different from maybe what you have there for walking with today, maybe a slightly more elaborate head on the crozier. But as part of the ceremony, St. Patrick took his crozier and he went to smite out all evil from the king, from the area, and he accidentally stuck the crozier down through the foot of King Angus. And King Angus, of course, said nothing, because he thought that it was part of the ritual, part of the rite of baptism as well. So it's from around this time that we start hearing stories of St. Patrick and his association with the rock. Some people might question whether or not St. Patrick was actually here at that time and what his influence was in Munster, but certainly there were Christians in Munster by the 4th and 5th century, and St. Declan may have been one of the saints who was responsible for Christianising the population of Munster at that stage. And the reason why we would say there were Christians here before St. Patrick is because as you travel around and along your way, and particularly passing into the Waterford side, you will find that there are lots and lots of Ogham stones along the route, and these Ogham stones quite frequently have references to names or to saints, or not saints but to people associated with the church, and they predate St. Patrick as well. So St. Declan was possibly one of the people who was responsible for Christianising the population of Munster at that stage. So the Ogonucht kings of Cashel ruled from this spot here up until the 10th century, when they're kind of usurped by a group called the Dalgash, associated with Brian Boru, the O'Briens from County Clare, but up until that time only Ogonucht kings could rule from Cashel, and only the Ogonucht tribe were allowed to become the kings of Cashel as well. The buildings that you see on the rock up here, just very briefly, all post-date that time. So the oldest building that you see on the rock is the round tower. So you can see the top of the tower just sticking up there above the wall. That dates to about 1101, when Brian Boru's grandson, a man called Murchurch O'Brien, actually handed the Rock of Cashel over to the church in what's recorded as a great and glorious gift. Now, in actual fact, it might have had more political sort of ramifications than it being a generous gift, because in handing it over to the church, it meant that the Ogonucht kings could no longer have a claim to the ancestral seat of power, to the royal seat of power. Anyway, that's the Rock of Cashel in very, very brief. The buildings date from 1101 up until the 15th century. As you make your way along the route that you're walking today, you're walking along what's called the Rainbow Fóric, the track of St. Patrick's cow. How did it get this name? Again, legend records that St. Patrick had a cow with two big horns, and as the cow walked along this track, its horns dug two deep furrows along the path, and they're the ditches on either side of the road that you'll be walking along. So a nice legend to start you off on your journey today. One of the most important sites that you're going to pass on the way between Cashel and Cahir is a place called Rathnadrinna. It's a place that's very dear to my heart at the moment because there's a team of archaeologists out there as we speak who are involved in excavations to see can they find out what was this site for, who used it, and again what was it used for. And hot off the press and a very exciting find that's just been discovered out there is part of a very elaborate house-shaped shrine. So it's a mount from a shrine, dates to the 8th century, and it is gold. So we know that this was a place where there probably were royalty, there were ecclesiastics associated with it anyway, and it's a very exciting find for Cashel, dating to the 8th century. As you pass on from Rathnadrinna, which St Declan would have walked past, you come to Racecourse Cross and you'll pass a place called Carronhenge. It's a massive, massive circular enclosure, and you have to imagine a wooden version of Stonehenge basically standing there. So St Declan would have walked right past that site as well. As you head on towards New Inn, you're going to pass numerous ring forts, numerous rats. Some of these may have been standing at the time of St Declan. You're stopping for lunch, I believe, at Ballygerald Church. It wouldn't have been there at the time of St Patrick. It's a medieval church, but there are ring forts and rats associated with it, so there may have been some form of earlier ecclesiastical site at that location. As you head back down into Cahir again, what you will notice is that, and if you're looking at your maps, you will notice that there's an unusual number of very, very large enclosures or ring forts or rats along the route, and these possibly, some of them were belonging to what we call the sub-kings of Cashel. So stretching from Cahir all the way around to the north side of Cashel, you have like an outer line of defences which would have been occupied by the sub-kings of Cashel who were protecting their main king here on the rock of Cashel. So that's just a flavour of what you're going to pass this morning. I'm not going to keep you any longer. If you like to find out more about the archaeology along the route, I would suggest that you look at www.archaeology.ie in your spare time, and when you're resting your feet this evening, might be a good opportunity to it. And you'll see a map like this. Every red dot is an archaeological site, and I've just marked out your route here in green so you can see you're passing right down through the heartland of some very, very fine archaeology in County Tipperary. Okay, so I'm going to leave you at that. Enjoy your walk. Thanks very much.